Welcome back to Story Mode. I had a great job, a great fiance, a great home, 2 beautiful dogs. What more could anyone ask? Welcome to 2007, where we take a look at a few video games from that year. Well, the first one we're going to look at is BioShock. I remember when I first played this game, it scared the hell out of me, and it still holds up to this day. Yes, 2007 gave us some amazing hits, and a couple of those I didn't really get to finish, and that is Mass Effect 1 and Super Mario Galaxy. I know, it's a crime. The other game from 2007 which you would need an incredibly powerful PC to play is Crysis. Did anyone have one? So my top 4 games I played in 2007, well, the first one is none other than Forza Motorsport 2, the exclusive on the Xbox 360, and a game I put way too many hours on. The next one would have to be none other than Sony's exclusive Uncharted, Drake's Fortune. This is possibly one of my favourite third-person games of all time. Number 2 on the list is Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare, the first Modern Warfare. It was an incredible game, especially multiplayer. Speaking of multiplayer, my number 1 game of 2007 and almost my number 1 game on the Xbox 360, and that would be Halo 3, of course. The campaign was incredible, but the multiplayer was even better. In fact, I reckon I would have thousands, maybe tens of thousands of game time online. It's 2007 and I am working extremely hard and making very good money. I'm working at Pioneer and doing other installs on the side. I'm getting up at 4 AM and working until 8 PM. Yeah, that's right, I'm doing 2 jobs. I'm working at Pioneer in the daytime. I'd get home, have something to eat, and then go and start other jobs, and mainly doing surround sounds for companies like Bose and Cricks. I'd be also doing installs for commercial cinemas like Hoyts and Village. Money would go to the mortgage and buying games. And when I mean buying games, I'm talking a lot of games, literally hundreds a week. I will call my contacts in the US and buy any games they had available. Super Nintendo, the original Nintendo, Nintendo 64, GameCube. I just wanted to collect everything Nintendo at that stage. My friend Simon, who was in Japan at the time, I would get him to scout everywhere in Japan to find all the rare Sega Saturn games, the Japanese ones of course. And he would find hundreds of them and at cheap prices, because at this particular time, no one was really buying Japanese Saturn games. I started buying so much else just for the sake of it. RC cars. I had like 20 at the time, but I just had it in my head to get 100. Why? I don't know, I just had the money and felt like it'd be a good investment. I did have to justify this expense, so I joined an RC track and got my friends to race my other RC cars I wasn't using. We had a ball. But games was more my thing, and I could see what was happening. I was buying back my collection that I sold some 10 years ago. Some 3,000 plus games, I wanted them back. Mandy could see things were growing rapidly. I was buying up like no tomorrows. And pinball machines as well. Pinball machines were going for next to nothing. I remember buying an almost mint condition Indiana Jones pinball for $800. I heard of people buying them for less, $500. The Indiana Jones I brought home had a bit of a mark on the playfield, obviously ball wear. And Mandy was keen to see if she could touch it up because she did have an artistic side. It's a side that I haven't seen much of. So I said, yeah, go for your life. She went down to the art department, she bought the right colours and started mixing up, and within a day, maybe 2 days, she said, okay, come and have a look at it. I looked at the playfield and thought, 1, is this a new playfield, or 2, where was the damage? Mandy was an absolute natural at fixing these machines or fixing the wear. So I bought another pinball, a Star Wars trilogy. This one was $600. Yep, $600 for the Star Wars trilogy, the pinball by Sega. It had wear, bad wear on the TIE Fighter. Within no time at all, she painted it. I couldn't see the repair. Again, I had to look really hard to find it. Mandy, let's go into business repairing pinball machines. We started going to pinball warehouses and arcade warehouses and buying their cheap pinballs, ones that looked a bit run down, and you'd never pay over $1,000. And we'd fix them up and almost double our money. But I wanted to keep a couple for myself. I was going to buy an arcade machine, but I thought, no, not again. I'm not that silly. So on the weekend, we had a break from pinballs, and Mandy and I started to look up distributors who used to distribute Commodore 64, the Amiga, the Atari ST, IBM, computers from back in the day, or at least computer software. We found 5 different companies, and on Monday morning, Mandy spoke to them all to see if they had any new old stock or NOS. She managed to talk to 2 companies who are willing to sell us a bulk lot of stuff. We're talking Commodore 64, Atari ST, Amiga, Atari 2600. This stuff was brand new, and they wanted to do a big deal. I met up with the first distributor, and when he opened up the doors of this factory or wholesale room, there was just boxes stacked from floor to ceilings. He even had Spectrum games. Now in Australia, we didn't really get Spectrum games, but they were coming here and there. And this guy had stuff that they never sold in the shops. The shops just returned the games to him. He had about 400 different Spectrum games. I asked him how much he wants. He said, just give me 10 cents each game. I mean, yeah, Spectrum games are not the most valuable games in the world, but we're talking 400 games. For what, $40? I'll take the lot. Commodore 64 was the same thing, 10 cents a game. Atari 2600, they're a little bit more expensive, 50 cents a game. Yes, new old stock, shrink wrap, 50 cents a game. Then he showed me all the Commodore 64 games he had. Some were doubles, but most of them were different. There are approximately 3,000 titles, most of them on cassette, a few on discs. I asked him, what does he want for the lot? He said, just give me $200. Yep, that is insane. That's way under 10 cents a game. I hit the jackpot. I would go to the next distributor, and they had pretty much the same thing. I didn't want to double up too much. I bought some Australian Mega Drive games, even though I wasn't a big fan of the Australian Mega Drive covers, because I already had all the Japanese games. Remember, I never sold my Japanese library of Mega Drive games, so they were still with me. When I got home, I was so eager to play some of my favorite Commodore 64 games, and I'm not kidding, within the space of about 6 months, I literally, well, Mandy as well, tested every single one of those Commodore 64 games, and from memory, only about 5 or 6 didn't work out of that 3,000 lot. Hard to believe, but very true.
This is truly amazing.
I then started collecting modern games, and the first console I wanted to hammer off was the Xbox 360. Again, I would need to call my contacts in the US and see what I could get from them. And then I had Simon Lee in Japan looking for all these Xbox 360 games, exclusive ones in Japan, and they were really easy to get, especially secondhand. New could sometimes be expensive, but secondhand, you could pick up a good Xbox 360 game for like $4 or $5. Then I got into PS3, and well, that opened up a can of worms because PS3 started to boom, especially in Japan. And collecting for both regions started to get challenging. I was at a family function one day. It was a big family get-together, and everyone was outside talking about my video game collection. I said, oh, I've easily got over 5,000 games, if not more. You know, I couldn't even count how many I had at that stage. And one person laughed and said, you should enter the Guinness Book of Records. And I just laughed about it. And he said, no, I'm actually serious. I thought, oh, you never know one day. And then my auntie says, you know, you've got a cousin who works in EB Games. And I said, really? And she said, yeah, it's a second cousin or maybe a third cousin, but you have got a cousin. I said, okay. whereabouts? And she said, oh, not far from you. In fact, she's local. She? What's her name? Her name's Jess. Her name's Jess.